everybody. Today is June 10th, 2021. I am Jarrett Bro, and it's my pleasure to be your host today for our latest masterclass. This one is called Media Interviews Made Easier. And for the next hour, we are going to look at various techniques for doing interviews. And part of what we're going to cover, quite honestly, is going to shock some of you, surprise some of you. It's different than anything you may have been told before in media training. Quite frankly, it's different than what I've traditionally taught in all of my crisis communications and media training classes. And the reason it's different is because times are changing, the media are changing, social media has become a different influence, and it's madness to keep doing the same thing and getting bad results. So I am perpetually looking for new ways to do things to get better results. So the concept of media interviews made easier is first to recognize that media interviews are hard. And talking to the media is like no other conversation you will ever have. I was actually a part of the media. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Jarrett Bro. I was a journalist, mostly in television, from 1979 to 1994. And then in 1994, I started working as a crisis communications consultant, doing media training, speaking training, writing books, things like that. And then in 2020, I launched the Situation Hub app. Situation Hub is the sponsor of this. And I'm looking at the list. A lot of you are users of Situation Hub. The master classes every month are open to everyone, whether you're a subscriber or not. Our idea is to always share best practices in crisis communications and in media relations to try to go to a higher level of thinking. And today we're definitely going to do that because we're going to look at how to do media interviews differently than what you may have traditionally been taught or that you may have taught. And this is a learning community, so I'll give you some concepts to work with, and afterwards we'll open it up for some question and answer. Now, our mix today is a rather interesting mix. We've got a lot of new people here who work for chemical companies who have now joined us from the National Association of Chemical Distributors. Welcome to you. I will be speaking at ChemEdge in August in San Antonio, so I look forward to seeing many of you in person there. We've got some folks from Texas government. I'll be working with you guys down in Corpus Christi in October. We just locked that in. National Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives. We've always got a large group of people from the cooperatives. And this time we also have a lot of people I'm seeing here who are with other public relations agencies. So you're people who are often training spokespeople or on your own. So you might be shocked with some of the things I tell you today, but hopefully you'll embrace them and you'll go, yeah, this is different than what we've been taught in the past, but oh my gosh, this actually works. So let's get into the content. Every month when we get together here, we always look at whatever our topic is through the 5 steps of effective crisis communications. That's the lens that we look at it. And today we're really digging into 2 of the 5 steps. One of them is number 3, which is to have pre-written statements. And number 4 is to media train your spokespeople using pre-written statements. So in every crisis communications plan that I have rolled out since 1996, the plan always comes packed with about 100 to 150 pre-written statements. If you don't have a library of pre-written statements as part of your crisis communications plan, I urge you, I encourage you, I implore you, build a library of pre-written statements. These statements that you need can be identified in step 1 of the 5 steps to effective crisis communications, which is to have a vulnerability assessment. And if you are a member of Situation Hub, a subscriber to Situation Hub, your entire library is housed inside the application so that you can write a news release in a matter of minutes, usually under 3 minutes. When you build your library of statements, or if you are using your statements from Situation Hub, your goal is to recognize that one statement should fit all audiences. Too many organizations try to customize and spend time writing one statement for the media, one statement perhaps for customers or the community, one statement for employees. Stop doing that. We don't have time in the age of social media to be doing endless drafts of statements. Your pre-written statements should always be based on facts, the way the media want them, written more like a media news release and less like a PR statement, more like a news statement. And you want your statements to manage the expectations of your audience, and where necessary, you want it to convey empathy. And the beauty of having pre-written statements, again, whether you're writing them yourself or whether you're using them in Situation Hub, is the idea that every word can be pre-approved. Every sentence can be pre-approved, and this speeds up your communications. If we look at the traditional pain, problem, and predicament that we have, is a good writer, like all these people on here who work for public relations firms, a good writer sits down and writes, and you do your best job. And it might take you 30 minutes to 45 minutes to do first draft. Your ego is making your statement often too perfect. And as perfect as you make it, I promise you, when you bring it into the boardroom, red pens are going to come out, and people who are non-writers are going to start marking up your language and sending you back for revisions. And you're going to take it back with draft 2, and they're going to ask for more revisions. And then, heaven help us, if the legal team comes in, they're going to change everything. A pre-written statement, for those of you who are writers, requires you to put your ego aside. I've had writers tell me many years, oh, gee, you just gave me 100 pre-written statements. Now my job is obsolete. Trust me, as a writer, there are plenty of opportunities for you to do great writing. On the day of a crisis, which we're really drilling into today, on a day that a situation can escalate into a public event that may draw scrutiny from social media or mainstream media or the community, in a day and age built for speed, you must give yourself permission to write fact-based short sentences that are almost void of commas in order to more quickly and effectively communicate. So step 3 is about building that library of pre-written news releases. And step 4 is training of spokespeople. And always remember that when you go through a media training class, my first rule is mess up and mess up big. Go through the stress, but recognize that all of your mistakes are made in private so that you never make those mistakes in public. The statement that you make and the techniques that you learn in media training apply across the board, whether you're talking to media, whether you're talking to employees, whether you're talking to customers, whether you're talking to the community. But you always have to remember that one wrong word compounds the crisis. And one wrong word can cost you money. It can damage your revenue, your reputation, and your brand. Those of you who have been in some of my conference workshops have seen video clips where I show one video clip where in 12 seconds, a spokesperson destroyed a $700 million project based on what he said as a spokesperson. I've learned, and I'm now more of a fan more than ever before, that if you master a script, you then minimize ad-libs and you minimize the questions you will be asked, and therefore you're less likely to make mistakes. Now, there will be interviews where, yes, it's an ad-lib one-on-one. If you're being interviewed by 60 Minutes or if an investigative reporter is digging into things, yep, you're going to have to sit down for that traditional one-on-one interview. But the nature of the changing news media now means that you can rely on a script more than ever before. So as you do your annual training, or if you're in a train the trainer class, here are some things I want you to know about using scripts and about the media. Let's cover some basics about the media right off the bat. Who are the media? They're the messengers to the masses. They can only report what they know. It's up to you to get the accurate information that they need. You need to get accurate information to them as fast as possible. And if you don't give them that information, they will go get it from somewhere else. And these days, that somewhere else is usually an eyewitness posting to social media. What do the media want? They always want the same thing: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Journalism 101. First day I walked into a journalism class at Louisiana Tech University in beautiful Ruston, Louisiana, where there wasn't even a McDonald's at the time I went to school. The first thing I learned was who, what, when, where, why, and how. And that's the idea of creating a pre-written statement that contains all of this. The second thing that a journalist learns that you should always embrace is what's known as the inverted pyramid. It is the diagram that you see on the screen there. If you look at the composition of any TV report, any radio report, any online reporting, or a TV story listed, you got to cover them all: TV, print, online, radio. It always follows this formula, this inverted pyramid. There's a headline. Then there's a lead sentence, which is essentially a synopsis sentence. There's a quote from the interview. There are general facts, more quotes, more general facts, and the tiny details. Now, depending on who you are and what your background is, if you're an engineer, if you work in finance, if you're a researcher, your human DNA is wired to do this wrong. Your human DNA says, give the tiny details. It's the difference between, the old joke of, you ask an engineer what time it is and they tell you how the watch is made. It's wired into analytical individuals to go to the details. So if you're an analytical person, or if you're media training an analytical person, you have to always work with them on this inverted pyramid. Start with the big picture. And in the pre-written statements that we're going to talk about in a little while, and that we're actually going to talk about throughout the rest of the masterclass here, because the media need a headline and because they need a synopsis sentence, every pre-written statement that you write, or every ad-lib media interview that you do, should begin with a preamble sentence. A preamble sentence is powerful. We're going to talk about the power of the preamble. A preamble sentence adds context. Reporters seldom, if ever, ask you for context. So we're immediately going to keep you from being taken out of context by proactively providing context. Next, the media need a quote from the interview. I can tell you that news conferences end faster if you deliver a quote early in your statement. So if you can embed a quote inside of a preamble, then you're manipulating the media and then manipulating the edit of the story. And then they need general facts: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So let's think about giving the media what they need. And let's start with the end in mind. Can we control the edit of the news story? Can we control what goes on radio, what goes on TV, what goes into a newspaper, what goes online? So many people just throw up their hands and go, no, you can't control the media. I go, no, that's bull. I do it for a living. You can control them. You have to ask, what do the media want and what will they say? And if you give them what they want and help them say what you want them to say, you get to not only manipulate the media, but you manipulate what they eventually report. A key thing to understand in this day and age is that media outlets are understaffed. News organizations across the board are understaffed. Once upon a time, I remember when CBS News, I was working on a project for CBS News in Israel. Israel had eight news teams. Today, if something happens in Israel, they're going to go to a correspondent standing on a street corner in London, as though the person in London knows anything more about what's going on in Israel than I do here in Mandeville, Louisiana. They simply don't have news crews. Now, most of you aren't dealing with national media, you're dealing with your local media. And some of you are not even dealing with TV media because I know that you're out in the middle of the country where you have a weekly newspaper that publishes online. Regardless of where you are, big city, rural community, here's what we know. Every media outlet has fewer reporters. The reporters are younger. It's because people like me left. And a lot of people who were making bigger salaries got fired after I left or got laid off. So there are a lot of young reporters who quite honestly, they're just not seasoned enough to know about your issues. I mentioned we've got chemical companies on the call here. We've got electric companies on the call. They don't know anything about chemical engineering. They don't know anything about electrical engineering. Reporters are generalists. And often the younger reporters operate with a lot of misconceptions. Some organizations will send out a photographer and no reporter. So the questions you get asked by a photographer aren't even at the level of the questions you would get asked by a young reporter. A photographer sets up a camera that looks a lot like the camera that you might have at home, or they pull out an iPhone and they just say, tell me what happened. There aren't even good questions anymore. And in many cases, no reporter comes out, no photographer comes out. The media are crowdsourcing information from social media. This is a changing landscape. If the landscape has changed, if the media have changed, we as institutions, as companies, or as PR agencies, or as communications professionals, we all need to change what we're doing as well. Which brings us to the point, should you ad-lib an interview or should you use a script? In many crisis situations, a script is now better. To teach someone to ad-lib requires that we teach them to mind map. If any of you have been through a traditional media training class, heck, if you've been through my past media training classes, I go into probably an hour to an hour and a half description of the key message tree. It's a system of mind mapping. Traditionally in media training, trainers would say, okay, what are your three key messages? So maybe reliability of our electrical grid is, or our electrical system is one of our key messages. And let's say affordability is the second key message. And let's say a third key message for an electric company might be the fuel blends that we're using so that we're using more environmentally friendly fuels such as wind and solar. So three key messages: reliability, cost, fuel source. And then you were taught to ad-lib about those. But the ad-libs don't always go well. So I started teaching phase 2 of that, which is internalized sentences that you can always fall back on. Sentences that you can say every day, but then the mind map continues to get more complicated. I'm not even going to go into it here. If you want to know more about the key message tree, send me an email afterwards and we can have a longer conversation. Because I don't need a key message tree anymore if I have a library of pre-written statements that I can read. Every pre-written statement in Situation Hub, or every pre-written statement that you write, should embrace the power of the preamble. So often when you talk to people after they do an interview, they will tell you two things. One, I was misquoted, or they combine that with my best stuff was left on the cutting room floor. So we'll call that a 1-1. The second thing that they will tell you is they were taken out of context. And I have fought this for years. And I always ask people, well, did you provide context? And they usually tell me, nobody asked me for context. And the answer is they're never going to ask you for context. When the reporter arrives to talk to you, or when they call you on the phone, or when they Zoom you, they've already written most of the story in their head. They've written the story based on what they think happened, not within the context of what happened. they're basing it on what they saw on social media, or what an eyewitness told them, or what they heard on a police scanner. You have to add context. So a preamble sentence gives you a place to start. People have confessed to me for years that one of their great fears in an interview is, what are they going to ask me? And for years, I've told people, it doesn't matter what they ask you. The question is, where will you start? Without spin. I hate spin. I reject spin. I will never teach spin. I have never taught spin. But what I do teach is the concept that when you're asked a question, the beginning can be pre-planned and internalized, or if it's on script, it's written. It's words to use to start speaking, to sound conversational, to add context. It's words that you can learn while the hamsters turn in your head and you think about, what will my mouth say next? A preamble immediately adds context. Depending on the event and how you write the preamble, it may also contain a quote. So for example, in a preamble for a workplace shooting, it may contain the phrase, our hearts are heavy with the news we have to share with you today. Our hearts are heavy with the news that we have to share with you today. Our hearts are heavy with the news that we have to share with you today. That's getting quoted, folks. I promise you, it will be the quote, pull quote in a newspaper or a pull quote online. And when your local TV news comes on and they're showing the helicopter flying over the city and they go to that cold open with a soundbite, I promise you it's going to be there. You can plan your sound bites. So therefore, your preamble is writing the reporter's lead and giving them a quote, and then you're going to give them facts. Guess what? You're doing their work for them. You're a better writer in many cases. You're a better communicator in many cases than what the reporter is getting in their own newsroom, from their sources, from their young employees, from their non-employees, from their photographers, from social media. If necessary, you can involve and put empathy in the preamble. And if you don't put it in the preamble, it'll go somewhere else in your statement. The other thing the preamble can do is it can control the mood of the media if you're ever put in one of those situations where you're having a full-blown news conference. There is a feeding frenzy attitude or feeling or sense that goes on when there's a big breaking story. I've been there. Look, I did it for 15 years. Nothing was more fun as a reporter than a big breaking news story. What is horrible for you is great for the news organization. Your worst day was often my best day. That's sick, that's sad. I apologize. I apologize for the truth, because it's going to advance my career, is going to enhance my viewership when you don't want any eyeballs on your organization. I apologize for that, but it's still the reality. And it's been said for decades, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That whole concept of if someone's dead or injured, it's a bigger story. So when there's that feeding frenzy feeling in a news conference, coming in with a preamble with a great phrase like, our hearts are heavy with the news that we have to share with you today, it changes the mood of the room. The reporters quiet down and they begin to listen more. The other thing about the preamble, and we're not going to dig super deep into this today, but it's a place to retreat to. Your preamble should cover your noble purpose of who you are as an organization. And we'll look at a couple of preambles in a minute. I'll open up some of the pre-written statements here, and you can see that preambles range from simple to complex, and you can write them many different ways. I don't care so much how you write them as that you actually write them. All right, another key factor when you have pre-written statements is that you can answer questions before they get asked. Questions are hard, but if you prepare and have planned statements, the news conference is easier. I'm going to read through a couple of pre-written statements for you in a few minutes. And what I want you to see is I use these in drills all the time. And I use them in media training all the time. When we do crisis drills and when we do media training, we always use the pre-written statements now. And what I often do in the training class is I will let the spokesperson deliver the message, news conference style, and then I will let the other participants ask questions. And it's always amazing how few questions get asked, because if the statement is thorough enough to proactively answer questions, there are fewer questions. Hence, if there are fewer questions, there are fewer ad-libs. Hence, if there are fewer ad-libs, there are fewer chances to mess up. So we're playing a game of psychology. If we know the pain, problem, and predicament, and we work backwards, we can avoid the pain, problem, and predicament, get better outcome, control the edit of the story. The one thing you have to train your people as you're using pre-written statements is, number one, you, if you're creating a pre-written statement, needs to make sure that you deflect speculation. It's always going to get asked, no matter how much you deflect in your pre-written statements. Most of your questions are going to be about speculation. Well, how did it happen? Well, why did it happen? Could it have been prevented? How much worse could it have gotten? How much worse could it have been? I'd love to ask those questions in media training. People look like the deer in the headlight. There's the shock of, how much worse could it happen? Well, it could have gotten a whole lot worse. No, I don't want you to say that. I want you to learn to repeat back to the sentence in the script that says, well, it would be inappropriate for us to speculate. We'll wait for an investigation to tell us what happened, how it happened, and how we keep it from happening again. Again, the power of a pre-written statement is it allows you to embed sentences like that. So master the script. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to change what I'm sharing. I'm going to go to a different screen here, and I'm going to pull up Situation Hub. So this is not a commercial for Situation Hub, but let me give you some context, right? About 2/3 of you on the call already use Situation Hub, so you already know what it is. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's an application that is intended to be used during a crisis. I am going to go, since we've got some electric cooperatives, I tell you what I'll do electric company first, and then I'll do chemical companies, okay? So there are 3 windows when you go into Situation Hub. One says, what's your situation? One's the situation room. One's the crisis comms hub. So this is the first place where you're going to go. So we're going to open it up, and we're going to create a pre-written statement. And you can model your pre-written statements off of this, or you can subscribe and make life easy. So we're going to do 2 different types of statements here initially with the electric company, because as all of you prepare your crisis communications plans, as all of you build your crisis communication strategy, everybody needs holding statements. I call my holding statements the first critical statement. I'm going to open that in just a minute, but just to give you an idea, I've got statements in here for abuse allegations, things happening next to our facilities, protesters, lots of arrest things, active shooting for during an event and after an event. I'm a huge believer that during an event, you can be communicating and filling the information void. So I've built templates in here for it. We've got, for the electric companies, every type of outage possible. We've got things like bombs exploded, bomb found, bomb threat. Let's think about this. Bomb threats once upon a time would never be a news story. But I promise you, if any of you evacuate your building and everybody's standing at the muster site or standing in the parking lot, people will put it on social media. The media will see it on social media, and therefore they'll ask you for a comment. So simple things that we would have never, ever put out a news statement for, now we tend to have to do that. There are chemical issues, flooding issues, power outage issues, workplace injury fatality, a huge thing all of you need to be prepared for. And I think our next masterclass, we're going to dig deeper into IT. I've got 6 different IT type events. You've all seen what happened with Colonial Pipeline. So yeah, I think we're going to do that as a future masterclass. Often social media creates a crisis for you. A few months ago, after the ERCOT power outages in Texas, we talked about social media backlash. I've got 7 different pre-written statements here for that. We've got suicide, tornadoes, workplace injury, workplace fatality, etc. So it's pretty robust. And these are all things that have come up in previous vulnerability assessments. So when you do your vulnerability assessment, step 1 of crisis communications planning, that becomes your roadmap for what you want for your pre-written statements. There are many different versions of what you would see for a pre-written holding statement. The concept behind the holding statement is that when little or nothing is known, say something. If you are silent, then the void gets filled with speculation. And in this day and age, that void gets filled by social media. So this starts with a simple preamble this is going to auto-fill in a minute the name of the company. One of our goals is to always keep our employees, our members, and the media apprised of activities at our facility. You could write that many different ways, but that's a simple one I use in this particular holding statement. We can confirm at this time that we're responding to, I'm going to say, an injury, but it's multiple choice. For chemical companies, it's going to have chemical issues here. For a hospital, it's going to have hospital issues. For a school, it's going to have school issues. So you customize it for whatever the scenario is. Who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? So what time did it happen? We're going to say it happened at 12:05. We're going to give the who, what, where. The where is going to be 123 Main Street. It's going to ask for what's the common name, because in the town everybody knows it. I'm going to say this is our Mandeville, that's my town, Mandeville facility. The event is over. I'm going to say it's over. We can confirm there are no known fatalities. There's 1 known injury. No, we're going to go everybody's accounted for. I'm going to take some of that out in the edit phase in a moment. We've requested assistance from, let's say, EMS. But you see here, I'm going to blow it up for you briefly so you can see a little better. It lists all the counties where you can type in the name of all the various agencies. So we're just going to choose EMS this time. Members of the team are in the process of gathering additional facts. So one of the things that you want to do in your pre-written statements is load them with what I would call benign quotable statements. And a reporter may forget to ask you some questions. If you proactively give them the information, then it fills their brain and their script with more of these benign sentences and less of the speculative sentences. So you're filling their need for information with sentences that are relatively benign, that I've just always loved to do. We encourage everyone to avoid speculation. We encourage everyone not to share inaccurate information on social media. Sometimes I'm just doing an admonition in those benign sentences. We ask the media and interested parties to stay in touch with us for updates. Remember, this is the holding statement. There's a lot more we can say about this event. So in the holding statement, we're going to promise them more information, and we'll post any updates to our website. And we're going to ask everybody to please bear with us, because remember, this is our holding statement. And so there you go, in under 2 minutes, we've created a script. Now, if you were using Situation Hub, what you would do is you would hit this alert team button, and you would take that information and it would go out to your internal decision makers. I just got a text here, an email is going to go out. But what that's going to then do is bring everybody in here to the situation room where they can now read the statement. So here is the script. that we would use multiple ways. So let's say an event is just happening. You hardly know anything is going on. I have here 15 simple sentences. I'm going to blow up the screen so that you can follow along. 15 simple sentences. If media arrive, you can send somebody out to read this to the media. If media call you on the phone, you can say, sure, I have a quick statement I would like to read to you. If media want to Zoom, sure, I'd like to read a statement to you. You can post the statement to your website. While I told you in the past, I hate social media, if you still use social media, post the statement to your website, then on social media, say we have an update on an event at our facility and send them to your website. Send them to a place where they can't have a conversation, where they can't talk. For those of you who are new here for the first time, do not believe the lie that posting to social media makes you transparent. Posting to your website makes you transparent. Posting to social media says that you're just asking for a waste of time to have to fight people who want to make comments about heavens knows what. So I'm going to edit out two things here. I'm going to edit out the fatalities, and I'm going to edit out everybody being accounted for, and I'm just going to keep it as a simple entry. Okay? Now, in media training with the script, your goal is to teach people to read this by reading and looking up. I think a great way to manipulate the media and to manipulate the edit of the story is to read this and record it to YouTube and to post a YouTube video beside your written statement on your website. Think about this. Media don't have enough reporters to send out, but they want to cover the story, and they're going to cover it with eyewitness accounts unless you give them something better. Here's how we teach people to read this. At Electric Company Name, our goal is to always keep our employees, our members, in the media prize of events at our facility. You can change that to company if you want to. We can confirm at this time that we're responding to an injury. The event happened at 12:05 p.m. The address is 123 Main Street. The location is commonly known as our Mandeville facility. This event is over. We can confirm there is one known injury. We've requested assistance from EMS. Members of our team are continuing to gather additional information about the event. We encourage everyone to avoid speculating about the facts of the incident. And likewise, we encourage you not to engage in sharing inaccurate information from non-official social media outlets. We ask the media and interested parties to expect additional information and updates from us. We'll post any updates to our website at www.mycompany.com. In the meantime, please bear with us. Now, if you're delivering this in person, your goal is to train your spokesperson now to do something outrageously difficult, which is to turn and walk away without answering any questions. This, as a holding statement, does not answer every question that is needed, but it fills the void. And let me expand one more time to show you one other little trick that I want you to use. When you're writing your pre-written statements, see these numbers? These help keep the spokesperson focused and on track. They can keep track of where they are because subliminally they're seeing those numbers. Now, the rules of Situation Hub are this: review for correctness, edit errors, but don't rewrite the language in the sentences. Now, I know there are enough writers in the room that 20 of you right now are thinking, I would change this word to that. Yes, you can. But do you have to? Does it make it stronger? What is more important, wordsmithing the word situation and changing it to event and fighting over it and fighting over commas in the sentence? Is that what's more important? Or is it controlling the narrative and filling the information void? So if this is your news conference script, you print that script. If you're happy with it, then you click publish. When you click publish, it's going to open up in a pop-up window, and then you're going to take that information and you just copy and paste it to your website. There it is. We're going to do a copy, paste, boom. put it on your website, and you have a statement. Let's go into something a little bit more detailed here. I got somebody asking something in the chat. I'm really going to need to get to those. Let's see, this says, often at news conferences in a crisis, there are multiple agencies represented. How do you coordinate the messages with additional agencies? Good question from Bill. The answer to that is you only talk about what you know. And that leads in perfectly to the next scenario that we're going to look at. And somebody else asked the question a few minutes ago, how long should a preamble be? And you just saw what a preamble is. It's basically 2 or 3 sentences. 2 or 3 sentences. But let's go back in and we're going to answer some of those questions by, let me reduce the size of my screen. All right, let's go in and we'll look at the preambles, and we're going to look at what happens after you've used your holding statement. So I'm going to, it's hurricane season. Let's go into hurricane warning for electric companies. So one of the things I want you to realize when you're building your library of pre-written statements, you need holding statements. For certain events, you can communicate before the event ever happens. So any type of weather event that's predicted, so if tornadoes are coming your way, if an ice storm, a snowstorm, something like that is coming your way, you've got the ability to have pre-written statements that can go out in, in an instant. Holding statements, manage expectation statements. The next two are during the event. So if we were doing full-fledged hurricane, I have power outage after the storm, but power outage during the storm. If we're doing workplace fatality, I've got an active shooter during the event and after the event. You've got the ability to be creating statements. So let's look at one that manages expectations. The one that we'll look at after this will be an event that happens so that we can follow through the complexities of that. All right, this preamble says one of our goals is to serve our members while also providing a safe workplace as we manage our day-to-day operations. However, like many others in the area, we are taking precautions because of the threat of the hurricane, and we encourage you to do the same. We're going to accept that. National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning. Hurricane warning means tropical storm force winds within the next 36 hours. Landfall, we're going to say it's going to be a Category 1 hurricane. Maximum winds could be 80 miles an hour. Forecast is going to be heavy rain and high winds. At this time, what are the preparation or crews for staging repair equipment and supplies? At this time, all employees are in standby. It's very common for power to go out during an event like this. Generally, that's caused by high winds knocking power lines, limbs into power lines. As policy during storms like this, we don't cut off the power, but you see you got a multiple choice of a whole bunch of different answers. Weather conditions may result in extensive damage to our electrical system. See, we're managing the expectations, and watch, we're going to get into what the residents should do. Residents and businesses in the service area could be without electricity for several days. So what I'm building up to here is giving the reporters the sentences they need to write their story. But because one sentence goes to all audiences, I'm talking to the electric customers, or in the co-op world, to the members, for those of you who are not familiar with member-owned electric companies. And I'm managing their expectations. Because if I tell them up front power might be out for a week, they're not going to be chewing me out as much 15 minutes after the wind stops because they don't have electricity. When an outage happens, first thing we do is restore substations, and then we also do EMS, fire, police, hospitals. Please be aware that during a complicated repair, the lights may come on and go off again. We understand that your neighbor's lights may be on and yours won't because you're on a different circuit. By having all of these built in, I've got a template that I can jump through real fast. For safety reasons, stay away from down power lines. It's important. If you want, an important consideration regarding evacuating your family is that you're going to be without creature comforts for a period of time. You should consider evacuating if you have children, elderly, or special needs individuals. Let's give shelter locations because we want people to evacuate at all county schools. If you're using a generator, have a transfer switch. If you have a home generator, don't start a fire. I already know what these say, so I'm just going to give you the cliff notes. We're going to read them in the statement in a minute. If you use an electrical generator, don't store fuel too close. Store that fuel away. Don't use too many extension cords. Don't run too many appliances off of the extension cord. If you use an electric microwave or an electric stove, you're out of luck. Sorry, that one was just sarcastic for me. Road conditions may make it difficult for you to leave home, so stock up now on water, non-refrigerated goods, and medications. We don't need to relocate people, so that's going to disappear. We don't need to relocate any activities, so we're going to say no. We'll do our best to reschedule activities. Nope, nothing's being canceled. We're going to say no to that. Employees should contact their supervisors for instructions. At this time, our office is open. Again, it's those little things. We're eliminating phone calls from customers by giving them some of this information. If you got an outage, report it to us by phone. Here's our phone number, 555-55-1234. Post updates to our website, and boom, another statement. So you want to have a library of pre-written statements like this. This one now is 32 sentences long. That means it's going to take you roughly 90 seconds to read it. Roughly 90 seconds to read it. Train your people to pick up the script. At Electric Company name here, one of our goals is to serve our members while also providing a safe workplace as we manage our day-to-day operations. However, like many others in the area, we're taking precautions because of the threat of the hurricane. And we encourage you to prepare as well. All right, see how I just delivered that last sentence? We encourage you to prepare as well. I know that the news organizations are doing preparatory storms. I am playing into what their assignments are for the day. And if I nail that last half of the sentence, I can make that the quote of the story and the focus of the story. Maybe the whole story is just about the electric company. Chances are it's not. Chances are this is becoming part of a bigger story. Let's cover the obvious: who, what, when, where, why, and how. The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning. Hurricane warning. Now, most people aren't going to know what it means, right? So instead of you looking it up on the day of the event, the sentence is already built into your template. Hurricane warning means that tropical storm conditions could affect our area within the next 36 hours or less. And depending on the storm tracks, it also means that we could experience sustained winds in excess of 74 miles an hour. Forecasters expect the hurricane to make landfall as Category 1. It's predicted maximum winds at landfall will be 80 miles an hour. In our area, forecasters are predicting heavy rain and high winds. At this time, our crews are staging repair equipment and supplies. At this time, all employees are in standby. It's very common for power to go out in a storm like this, and generally is caused by high winds knocking limbs into power lines. Trust me, I live in a hurricane zone. I live on a lake, and my yard floods last year 31 days out the year, okay? And I know what it's like 6-10 hours before the storm, and the power goes out, and everybody goes, rats, or other explicatives, right? Manage the expectations that, yeah, there's a good chance that you're going to lose power ahead of time because of limbs falling. As a policy, during storms like this, we never shut down power. I include that sentence because in California, you see with the wildfires that Pacific Gas and Electric often shuts down the power grid during a windstorm. So there's a lot of social media speculation. Let's answer that proactively here. Weather conditions may result in extensive damage of the electrical system. I'm managing the expectations of the audience. When an outage occurs, power is first restored to substations and major lines, as well as to critical infrastructure in areas such as hospital, police departments, and other emergency responders. Again, I'm managing the expectation of how we're going to put the dominoes back up in place. Please be aware that sometimes during complicated repairs, you might have your lights come back on, only to have them go off again because we discover another problem that has to be fixed. We understand it's frustrating if your neighbors have lights and you don't, or that people across the street from you have lights and you don't. Often this is because your home may be on a different circuit than their home, or your meter may be damaged. For your safety, stay away from down power lines. And I'm not going to read the rest of these. You saw these, but these are all the precautions that we give people about using generators and electricity and stuff like this. I'm answering questions before they get asked, and I'm writing the statement for the media. Let's go to an event that is, let me send this off to the alert team just to clear it out. All right, let's go. Let me see what questions we have here real fast. Let me stop sharing because I see we've got a question in the chat. All right, as someone who has experienced a major hurricane in our service area, this looks like an excellent tool. Oh, thanks. Radio stations especially want all of the information on live interviews when our members and our listeners are in their cars evacuating. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what it's designed for, is to get this information out. And let me present another concept to you that many of you have not probably used in the past. And that is the concept that because of the changing nature of the media, I'm going to log out here for a second. I'm going to log back in as a chemical company. Something that some of you have never done before is to simply say to a reporter, even if it's a one-on-one interview, look, I know you're going to have a bunch of questions for me, but if you'll indulge me, I actually prepared a statement for you so I don't forget to tell you anything. So if you'll just bear with me, give me 90 seconds to read through my statement. I'll give you a copy of it afterwards, and that way you've got answers to take with you, but then you can ask me any follow-up questions you want. Is that okay? And it works. It's working every time. Seldom does a reporter push back and go, okay, you know, that's not their first choice. Their first choice is to sit here and start asking you questions. If it's TV, trust me, baby, they got the microphone. They're ready to stick that microphone in your nose and start asking you questions. Do you have to take that? Nope, you absolutely don't. Control the situation. The more you control, the fewer problems you have. I'm going to go through one more situation. Our program is going to go a little beyond an hour here, so I'll keep it on the air live for you. This is a chemical company. So let's go to a situation real fast at which there is a chemical spill on site. Chemical spill on site. Here we go. So this will be the last pre-written statement that we look at, and then we're going to answer questions that you might have. All right, preamble. This one says, one of our goals is to provide a safe workplace for our employees and our guests as we manage our day-to-day operations, as well as to maintain safe operations as we distribute our products. However, there are times when things go wrong, and unfortunately, we're experiencing such an event. Please note what this does not say in the preamble. This does not say safety is our top priority. And the reason it doesn't say that is, as a cynic, moi, as a cynical reporter, I interviewed so many people. I took the microphone and I stuck it in their nose and I went, so what happened here? And they go, safety is our top priority. And I'm going, clearly not, Sparky. I see a fireball over your shoulder. Comment, right? We don't want that to happen. We make a transition in the preamble. However, there are times blah, blah, blah. So every preamble needs to call out what your noble purpose is, what your noble goal is, and I use the word GOAL. I'm pretty sure that out of the thousands of news releases I've ever written and all of the thousands of pre-written statements in Situation Hub for all these different types of companies, the word goal is used in every one. Committed is not my first choice. Top priority is not my first choice. Goal. Let's jump through this. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. We're responding to an event at our site as opposed to off of our site. As we respond, our goal is to keep people in the environment safe. Incident began at 12:30. We're going to call this a product spill. The name of the product is ChemSafe. How's that? We're going to make up the name of that product. In our facility, this is our finished product. In the consumer world, it's used to make plastics. Location where this is underway is our Mandeville facility. And Mandeville is my hometown. The address is 123 Main Street. The appropriate agencies were notified, including, I'm going to say, the National Response Center. Members of the community are being advised to continue with normal activities. We're not going to do any evacuations. And we're going to share. So here was one of the questions we got asked earlier by Bill Spancel. He asked, you know, what do you do if you're in a JIC situation, a Joint Information Command, multiple agencies involved? Here's the sentence. The information we're sharing only relates to the employees in our facility. So you're not given information about anybody who might be injured in the community. There are no fatalities. Let's do no injuries. Everybody's accounted for. So then I answer the sentences. No known fatalities. There are no injuries. Everyone's accounted for. Sometimes the sentences repeat because it triggers everything else that happens in the decision tree. We're working with authorities to determine the best way to respond. The response is a coordinated effort of our emergency response team. So you get the idea of where this is going. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But you're seeing how we're covering the preamble. We're covering the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And because it's chemicals, which some of the younger reporters aren't going to be familiar with, we're going to go through the process of explaining in as simple terms as possible what chemicals are being used, what it's used for in society, and how we can manage what it is, managing the expectations that the event didn't cross our fence line. It'll go into all the issues of no contamination to the air, no contamination to the water, no contamination to the ground, all those other things that you want to have in a pre-written statement. So that brings us back so that we can wrap up and get you guys on your way on time. My new approach, based on the changing landscape of the media, is prepare more scripts. And write those scripts on a clear, sunny day. Don't try to write them on the day of your crisis. When I watch a news event unfold, on average, it takes 3.5 hours for an organization to go from flashpoint of their crisis or their situation to writing and approving a statement. That has got to stop. A pre-written statement should go out in 1 hour or less from the onset of the event. And if you're using something like Situation Hub, that statement is ready in 3 minutes. At the most complicated stuff, if you killed a bunch of people and injured a bunch of people, it might take you 5 to 7 minutes. If you've got pre-written statements, you're going to move much faster. Let's take a couple of questions. The chat is going to be open, so we can put questions there. I'm going to make a couple of offers to you today. So if you email me at info@situationhub.com, just email me. There's no commitment at all. If you're interested in Situation Hub, we'll do 50% off the setup fee. If you're an NACD member, you've got special pricing that NACD is making available to you. If you need media training, pay for 4, get 1 free. And if you are a media trainer and you want to get better, we're going to do a Train the Trainer Academy. So all you got to do is just send an email that says, hey, info@situationhub.com. Jared, I'm interested in one of those, okay? I'm interested in Situation Hub. I'm interested in media training. I'm interested in your Train the Trainer class. Any of those sorts of things, email me at situationhub.com. All right, in the chat box. Oh, this was great. I hate that I have to leave. Well, you know what? There's going to be a replay. Great info. Thank you very much. Until I'm reading this cold. A thought. Prepare for several languages in advance if applicable. Yes. So here's somebody who's watching the show from France. I know we've got somebody from India today, from the Public Relations Society there. I see one person from the Philippines. Yes, certainly you should have these in multiple languages. Right now, in Situation Hub is only available in English. But if, for example, you're in states with multiple languages, that's exactly right. You want to have those in multiple languages. We've got a partner over in Belgium, and one of my chemical company clients in Belgium is interested in using it. So we're going to have to put it in the various languages used over there, including French. Those of you in Texas and California, Arizona, New Mexico, in many cases, you need to have all of your pre-written statements translated into Spanish because of your influx of Latin individuals or Latinos, Latinas who are in your communities who don't speak English as their first language. All right, I see no more questions in the chat. So here's what we're gonna do. I'll share the screen one final time. I always offer you the chance that if you have something that you can't ask in public and that you need to ask me in private, there's the good old link on your screen for a Calendly connection. I can never say that, Calendly. So if you want to connect with me there and have a little Zoom call and a private call, use that, or you can just email me at info@situationhub.com. Every month we get together so that we can share best practices. Whether you use Situation Hub or you don't use Situation Hub, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer, whether you want help, we just want to share great content with you. We welcome your ideas for future content. I'm pretty sure next month we're going to try to do something on cyber crisis communications. One of my clients, we did a drill on, it was a cyber drill, and the scenario we gave them actually hit them 2 weeks after we did the drill. So I think now is a worthwhile time to look at that. My name is Jarrett Bro. If I can serve you in the future, please reach out to me. I appreciate your time today. Be well. Hope we in person real soon.